So if you just walk out into the sun and think, ah yes, those 300 nanometer ultraviolet wavelengths are hitting my 7-dehydrocholesterol receptors, helping me synthesize vitamin D3 to help alleviate systemic inflammation and give me better neurotransmitter synthesis. No? Just me? The day I go to film a video about vitamin D and like the sun, my light breaks, so now I look extra pale. And I'm telling you to see a bit of sun, like this is so unfair. So yeah, vitamin D, very important, very common deficiency. One of the most common deficiencies is harder to get from diet, which is why we, as I said before, synthesize it in response to UV light from the sun. Okay, it's not like we're getting it directly from the sun. We make it ourselves in response to the sun. I talked to this guy one time and he thought it was like the sun was transmitting it. It's like, how are we gonna get fat soluble vitamins just like from the sun across space? Think. But yeah, UV index is lower in the winter, and particularly if you're closer to like the polar areas. And also if you have darker skin, it can be harder to get enough UV, which is why I'm looking at getting the like albino surgery done. I think that's going to be pretty beneficial. But you can store like a lot, like 6 months worth of vitamin D, which theoretically, if you see enough sun in summer, you can get your way through winter, but we'll talk about supplements later, but you can store quite a bit. And I think within fitness spaces where people largely just go to the gym and maybe don't exercise outside as much, like how are you getting your sunlight? So what happens when vitamin D stores run low? Well, the first thing is immunity, right? Your T cells, which will, you know, mop up all of those like nasty bacteria and toxic viruses, like TikTok, it'll activate those cells, which will just help your immunity in general. Vitamin D deficiencies are also linked to lower test levels in men, because we need that vitamin D for those luteinizing hormones to synthesize the testosterone, okay, and also fertility drops with vitamin D deficiencies. And mental health is actually a big hitter here as well. Serotonin and dopamine synthesis are pretty dependent on vitamin D as well, which is why there's literally the phenomenon called winter blues, where we're not getting enough vitamin D over winter, and therefore those neurotransmitter, the synthesis is impaired and you feel like trash. And if we look back at some of these things, you'll see that systemic inflammation kind of ties everything together, which is why if you're going to like McDonald's every day, you're gonna have to start going twice a day. That's not right, because vitamin D will have a pretty potent effect on systemic inflammation. As I always talk about on this channel, anti-inflammatories are like some of the most important things I put into my diet. Get your fruit in, get your extra virgin olive oil in. Maybe not together, but at some point. And another big hitter here is bones, and I talked a bit about this in my last video, but it's important that you keep your bone density high, because otherwise you're going to run into osteoporosis later in life. And the thing is, our blood level of calcium is really kept within a thin band, and if it goes down, it pulls calcium out of our bone. And the thing is, if we don't have enough vitamin D, we, for one, don't actually absorb enough calcium, but it'll just pull more of it from our bone. Yeah, so again, some of the risk factors for deficiency are like, you know, if you're inside a lot, if you're older as well, because you can't synthesize as much. I think it's like a quarter in older age of vitamin D synthesis in response to the sun, as well if you live with the poles, and I don't mean like actually on the North Pole. I mean, maybe, but I guess that wouldn't help either, but go close to them. So how do we get more of this in if you can't see the sun any more than you do usually, or you're worried about cancer, which is kind of fair enough. But eggs or decent oily fish is like the go-to, like, you know, trout or salmon or sardines if you want. Milk has a solid bit, to be fair. I get a good chunk out of that, and also liver as well. Fun fact, if you're an organ donor, your liver will actually be used as hospital food to treat patients with vitamin D deficiencies. Cool thing is nowadays, like, a lot of foods will actually be fortified. Like, you'll add nutrients to the actual food. Like, you might have orange juice that's fortified with vitamin D. Not that I recommend the orange juice. It's mostly just sugar without the actual antioxidants of the actual orange. But you can probably find literally everything. You probably find like dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets with vitamin D added. Some people out there, man. As far as supplements go, they're actually really safe and not too expensive either. So if you're really on the fence and thinking, okay, maybe I'm deficient, but I really can't be asked getting tested, you could just use that as an insurance policy. Again, if you live near the poles and don't see much sun, you should probably be on it. You don't have to go overboard on this dosage. Like, get 1,000 IUs is like the regular dose for a pill. Just that's fine. You don't need like 10,000 every 30 minutes. I mean, you could, but you might get kidney stones at that level. So as far as supporting nutrients go, magnesium and zinc are actually quite helpful as well. Magnesium will like activate the vitamin D more, and zinc will amplify the response. Both of these nutrients we get just generally in whole foods, so unless you're eating like a hyper-processed food diet, which if you're on this channel, hello? But no, if you're getting, you know, a whole food diet, you're probably getting enough of these, but, you know, it's worth looking out for. Zinc, I think deficiencies are a little bit higher than magnesium. Magnesium is pretty easy to get in pretty much any whole plant food. The zinc, I get a good chunk out of my oats and quinoa, but meat's pretty good too, and it's a bit more bioavailable. Speaking of meat, you've seen a lot like the vitamin D3 K2 1-2 punch. So this is like a complex that's designed to aid bone health. The K2 will direct the calcium more to the bones, and of course the vitamin D will improve absorption of the calcium. So that's why these two are generally paired together, and it's kind of fair enough. It's a pretty good combo. K1's a lot easier to get. I get like 800% of the daily recommendation just because of spinach, but the conversion to K2 is pretty low. So K2 is like the gold standard of it, which you get more with like animal products, right, with meats. So what's the final verdict here? Well, if you are darker skinned, live the poles, don't see much sun, and are in winter, you should almost definitely be supplementing. It's very likely that you're deficient, and that's going to cause all those issues with like immunity and lower test levels, systemic inflammation, infertility. Dude, they're cheap pills. I'm a little bit iffy though of always recommending supplements. Like, I'd rather you just go for like something like salmon or sardines that are going to be loaded with other things like omega-3s, which I always praise on this channel for the same anti-inflammatory potential that you might get from vitamin D as well. So yeah, I'd recommend those before supplements, but if nothing else works, don't be afraid to supplement. That's kind of what I wanted to say. Yeah, anyway, shorter video today, but there isn't too much to cover. It's like a single nutrient. But if you did enjoy this, some more videos there, I will see you next time.